Hey everybody, this is Justin out in the workshop for Dirt 4 Outdoor with part 2, episode 2 of Alice Gear, care, maintenance, and hardcore repair of Alice Gear. We're going to start with some Canteen pouches is going to be the first thing we'll do, and we'll move on to some other stuff. Now I'm uploading part 1. You may have suffered through that by the time you get to this, but some important stuff in there as far as the tools and equipment that you need to do these jobs. But we're going to go ahead and jump in, and we're going to get to repairing some Canteen pouches. But before I do, I did forget one more very, very important thing. Manuals. If you're out at the used bookstore or the surplus store, there are a ton of these manuals available. These are definite good to get item. $5, you can't beat it. So anyway, that's enough out of that. Let's go ahead and get to the pouches here. So when you're out looking for gear, remember, don't let the gear intimidate you. This is a lot easier and a lot faster and a lot cheaper than you think. So let's go ahead and get to it.
Okay, step 1. If you already own an Alice pouch, go ahead and remove it from your gear and set it aside. If you are purchasing pouches, it's highly recommended that you purchase an authentic military issue pouch that is a national stock number item. Is go ahead and remove the Alice clips from the back. They simply slide out by pulling the tongue out, and they will be inserted in some webbing. Sometimes the webbing is rather stiff. Sometimes it's loose if it's worn in. But basically, go ahead and pull the tongue out. And the best thing to do is slip the end hook under the webbing with your finger, and then with some force, go ahead and pull it out. Go ahead and take those and set them aside. You're now ready to proceed to step 2, which is the laundering of the pouch. And often they'll have dirt, grease, and grime in them, and over time those can fatigue the material and add to wear. So you want to go ahead and wash these. The recommended laundering procedure by the military is to go ahead and take a bathtub, a sink basin, or perhaps a bucket or plastic tub with some lukewarm water and some mild detergent. Go ahead and soak these in there and then gently scrub at them. Don't use a scrub brush. If you have 2 Canteen pouches, for example, you can go ahead and use them to scrub against each other. You may find you need to change the water a couple times, as it'll be dirty as it leaches out all of the gunk that's in there. Go ahead and do that until you wind up with some clean water, and you'll be surprised how clean and great looking these will be when you pull them out. Go ahead and pull them out of the water when you're done and allow them to drip dry out of direct sunlight. Also, an alternative method for laundering these would be to go ahead and use your washer and dryer. However, it's cautioned to be very careful with this. Once again, you're going to remove your Alice clips before you do that. It's also recommended that you go ahead and reattach any snaps, connect everything down. On some items that have plastic Fast-Tex clips, you don't want those loose and risking breakage in the laundry cycle. Also, put it in with a regular load of laundry to insulate it, as these metal fasteners will clack around, particularly in the dryer. Be very cautious. Set it on a regular cycle. Do not use hot temperatures, and do not use anything but color-safe detergent. Once again, that can bring it out to almost a brand new sheen, as if it was factory stock new, if that's the desired look you're going for. Now, maintenance of the Alice clips. The Alice clip is actually 3 different components. It's a bottom piece, a top tongue piece that it sandwiches on top of the bottom hook with this metal sleeve. It is possible, particularly when you're removing it, that it can come apart, and what will happen is this top tongue piece may pull out. This sleeve, then being loose because it's only around the bottom piece, will go ahead and loosely slide down to the bottom. If this happens, go ahead and take the top piece, place it back in this middle configuration as it's sitting right here, and then take the loose sleeve, and with some resistance you can pull back up, and you may hear and feel a snap as this top depressed tongue clicks back into position. Once it does that, the clip is now reassembled and you can close it normally. Take a metal object such as your knife or a screwdriver and go ahead and ensure that that tongue is pressed down correctly. Likely, if it's a particularly worn clip, that's become loose and what has allowed that to disassemble. Normally this shouldn't be an issue. If you have a very particularly worn clip and you don't feel confident in it, replacement clips are available. However, proper maintenance of it can ensure that it will function properly. The next step with the Canteen pouch is, if desired, any stencils, the US or any manufacturer marks can be rejuvenated with the use of an ink pen. It isn't recommended that you use the Sharpie at this point. Rather, a permanent magic marker offers a more subtle and flatter ink to be used. If you do have particularly worn stencils, a method similar to tracking footprints can be used by utilizing a low light at an angle and looking at an angle. It's easy to pick up detail. You can then use the stencil to go ahead, the stencil of the shadow, to go ahead and retrace with the magic marker. This also offers the benefit of, if you make a mistake, it won't show up quite so badly. If you utilize a Sharpie, it will be very contrasting, and stroke marks will also appear where you filled in a rather large area. If you are picking out a thinner detail, such as this LC2 here, and you want it to stand out, then very definitely go ahead and use your Sharpie, and you'll get an effect similar to that. The next step is to assess any of your metal hardware on the Canteen pouches. The buttons are made out of brass, whereas the lower drain grommets are aluminum. Both of them are coated in a semi-glossy black substance for coating. What ends up happening is they will wear, and oftentimes you can get a bright, shiny effect like that. What you want to do is to go ahead and re-blue them. At this step, it is recommended that you use a Sharpie pen. As many infantry veterans can tell you, the #1 method for cleaning your gear up for inspection can easily be remedied by filling this in with a Sharpie as such. Now, once you do that, that Sharpie ink may not stay, and you may find yourself repeating that process many times. What's recommended at this point is to take a clear nail polish. Simply take it after your ink has dried adequately. Take a generous amount on the end of the brush and goop it on more than you brush it on. Spread it around as evenly as possible. Don't worry, it's very viscous, but as it dries, it will even out. Just simply splotch it on. Try not to stroke as if you're painting. You may run the risk of stripping some of the black ink off onto the tip of the brush, and it will pollute the bottle if you place it back in, which can be particularly embarrassing if you're borrowing this from somebody. Back in the day, I can remember there were quarter-size bottles available, I believe from Brigade Quartermaster, that were exactly that, a black ink in this similar smelling chemical, which were essentially for exactly this job right here. But I haven't seen those for quite some time. I don't know if they're available anymore. So this is the tried and true method that works. Now, Once that is dried, you will end up with a glossy effect. These are in relatively good new condition, only slightly worn, and you can see they're somewhat less. And a lot of people don't want to shine. So what you can end up doing is when that coating is dry, as it's there more for protection than cosmetics, is to go ahead and go over it again with the Sharpie. And you'll actually find that when the ink dries, it will be a more subtle effect. Certainly, you could even experiment with using the Birchwood Casey in this case. All depending on what your end desire is for visual effect. You can certainly leave it at an inspection quality as such, or many infantrymen for noise discipline and light discipline will recommend going ahead and putting some tape over those. They are black, so that if for some reason the tape comes off, you want to make sure they're still black underneath. Now once again, same rule on the grommet on the bottom, same treatment. Go ahead and use the Sharpie, fill it in, and then paint it and allow it to dry. Another issue that you may encounter when purchasing these that you certainly shouldn't steer away from, or perhaps if you have had this pouch for a while and it's become damaged, is broken button snaps or grommets. This isn't a particularly challenging task, as if you purchase this recommended piece of equipment, it will come with replacement pieces. Simply remove the broken pieces. You can possibly reshape them and reuse them in a similar method with this tool if you use a wrench, or you can go ahead and utilize some replacement hardware. Simply take out the front and back of either the male or female portion that you require. There will be a hole left in the nylon. Use your cigarette lighter to go ahead and harden it and get rid of any excess threading, and go ahead and place the post through the hole on one side and the other piece on the other. And what you'll do is put it together, trapping the material in between. Go ahead and select the proper selection on the receptacle and put the post end facing the post, and go ahead and snap it down with a decent amount of pressure. And you'll go ahead and find that it will be just as secure and match up with the standard size snap buttons. Now you will get obviously a bright shiny metal replacement clip, but once again, with the use of the Birchwood Casey or the Sharpie and the hard coating, you can go ahead and match it up and there will be little difference distinguishable.